For decades, Iraqis prided themselves in refusing to immigrate for any reason. Today, over 4 million find themselves scattered around the world or internally displaced. The dreaded ethnic cleansing has become a component of the Iraqi picture. Whether Sunnis, Shiites, Arabs, Kurds, Muslims, or Christians, they are sharing the same wretched pain of being uprooted from their homes. To discuss Iraq's internally displaced and refugees issues, I'm joined from London by Dr. Sami Ramadani, Professor of Applied Sociology at London Metropolitan University, and from Amman by spokesperson of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Nada Doumani. Welcome to Inside Iraq. Nada, let me start with you. There is a blatant disregard for human lives in Iraq today.
Yes, that's correct. There is blatant disregard for human life. There's a blatant disregard for human dignity. We are appalled by what's happening in Iraq, where the civilians are paying the highest price for the conflict. Civilians are being targeted, be it indiscriminate attack, car bombings, abductions, military operations, killing, sectarian violence. This is totally unacceptable, regardless of what are the issues at stake in Iraq. What we observe today is very shocking, and that's why the International Red Cross also urged once again yesterday all parties in the conflict, all those who can exert an influence on the ground, be it a moral influence, a political influence, to do something, to urge all the parties involved to stop these attacks on civilians, to respect international humanitarian law, the basic principle of law, the basic moral principles, in fact.
Nada, there are many organizations trying to help the Iraqis. Yours is one of them, the International Committee for the Red Cross. Human Rights Watch is also another entity. They are calling on the Jordanian governments to give fleeing Iraqis the status of refugees. I know you cannot comment on that, but to what extent do you think neighboring countries can ameliorate this current situation?
I'm not in a position, as you said, to speak about the status of refugees, of the Iraqis who have left their country. I can only speak about the internally displaced people, the IDPs in Iraq. According to different sources, there are currently more than 40,000 families have been displaced since February bombing, since the Samarra bombing this year, in addition to all those who have been displaced in previous years, which means approximately 250,000 people just this year.
You are very careful in the ICRC not to mention the word ethnic cleansing, the dreaded word that is in Iraq right now. To what extent do you believe this ethnic cleansing, I'm calling it, you're not calling it, is going to be perhaps the biggest problem facing Iraq?
You know, Jassim, irrespective of the term used, what we can observe, as I said, is definitely that displacement is happening along sectarian lines. This is a fact, and the nature of this displacement varies, but we can say also that the more mixed an area is or a city is, the more sectarian violence is likely to happen, and this is what we can observe.
Dr. Sami, or let me just call you Sami as you preferred, how do you look at this mass human exodus out of Iraq?
I think it's an absolute tragedy of enormous proportions, particularly that Iraq has not witnessed in its history such an internal social conflict, a conflict which appears to be today as sectarian, but I think it runs deeper and there are much more complex problems surrounding it than just glibly calling it Shia against Sunni or Muslim against Christian and so on. But before coming into that, the size of the tragedy itself is massive, not only because of the horrific figures that you mentioned yourself in terms of the displaced people, in terms of the deaths. It's a bloodbath in Iraq in many ways. But also
Sami, let me stop you for just a minute. You intrigued me by saying it is not a Shiite Sunni thing, but there are other factors, internal and perhaps even hidden. What would those be?
I think one has to look at the occupation, Jassim. Without looking at the occupation and the dynamics of the occupation of Iraq, then a huge chunk of the picture will be missing. In fact, the most important fact about the complex reality of Iraq today will go missing.
The writ of the current government does not run beyond perhaps even the green zone. and yet this massive killing machine keeps going on. Can you envisage a situation where and how it will be stopped?
To tell you the truth, I can't envisage it stopping without first ending the occupation. And this is the very, very saddest thing about Iraq today, that the occupation is being portrayed as an independent factor, almost a benign, watchful factor over Iraqis going mad suddenly after thousands of years of living together, going mad and killing each other en masse. The reality is not like that. I think without thinking of ending the occupation, because the occupation is like a poison running into the veins of Iraqi society.
Finally, if somebody has to blame somebody, who would you blame? Would you, I don't mean just you, would you blame Saddam? Would you blame Bush? Would you blame the newcomers for this horrific picture that we see in Iraq?
I think you summarized it well, Jassim. I'll blame all of them. Saddam's rule for 35 years probably prepared Iraq under such a brutal dictatorship to be handed over to the United States. The United States and Britain and others applied 13 years of sanctions, killing so many innocent Iraqis. And now the occupation and the destruction of cities. I mean, we talked earlier about displaced people. Fallujah, a city of 300,000, was destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people fled their homes. The occupation, I'm afraid, is the primary reason for the tensions and bloodshed in Iraq. I don't say it will be a bed of roses once they withdraw, but at least the Iraqis will have a chance to sit together and try and resolve these complex problems.
Sami Ramadani from the University of London Metropolitan, thank you very much. Nada Domani of the ICRC, thank you very much. To find more information about the program and to send us your comments, please go to aljazeera.net/English. That's all the time we have this week. Join me next week when we'll have a closer look at the Baker-Hamilton recommendations, which will be unveiled officially next Wednesday. Join us then. Goodbye.